colorism within black communities is similar to that of the Asian community, right?
Yeah.
Of like, no matter what Asian country you go to, you're going to find a culture of skin whitening.
They all want to be white.
And why is that?
We all want to be white.
So
why is that? I mean,
this is something that I was having a discussion about this the other day on an interview. Somebody asked me, and I was like, you want to know? Okay, let me tell you. Racism, colonialism, because centuries ago,
that's the answer. That is the response.
That's what it goes down
to everything, and I didn't get that before.
the TV show on Netflix, Black AF. Yeah. It's like Kenya Barris.
Because of slavery.
Every episode, it's like the title of every episode is because of slavery, because it goes back to slavery, but it goes back to white Europeans spreading across this globe, raping entire continents, murdering anyone who chose to go against their beliefs of this false story of the Bible that they shoved down tribes and cultures' throats, and anyone who chose to believe differently was punished for it, if not murdered for it. They erased the history of the spectrum of gender. They erased the history of the spectrum of sexuality. They put us into a binary, white and black, good and evil, like, you know, the Lord and the devil, and nothing in between. When you walk into a church, why is it that every god, saint, angel, cherub is white?
Blue eyes.
Why is that? Yeah. It's because it's a story that is not true.
But it really is. Everything is because of slavery. Because we wouldn't live in this world that we live in with all of the great things we have. Black people made everything, and that's the other thing. Like, what I've found so unbelievable to start learning and to start reading about, and I want to learn more and read more, is to just realize that America was built and the world was built by black people, and
that the human race started with black women in Africa. I mean, that's just a fact.
And that's a topic, though, we can't even really get into at this stage because we're so divided, that to say, like, we all do come from a black woman is, like, amazing and beautiful and, like, yes, but that's not a good, I don't think that's a good conversation starting point. Because, like, I think it allows white people to then make a bunch of excuses that they keep making. To say, like, these ideas of, like, we're all one and we all come from a black, I mean, yes, you should acknowledge we all do come from a black woman, but because race is a thing, although it's an illusion, that it's not a biological thing, it's a social construct, that we can't use that, but we all come from a black person as, like, a way to not name whiteness for what it is. Does that make sense?
What is whiteness?
Well, this is what I've been listening to, like, Layla Saad and lots of different people saying, you've got to talk about what is whiteness. Because, yes, it is an illusion and it's a social construct, but it operates with power and privilege and therefore oppresses everybody and takes everything over and controls everything. So you have to be able to name that and identify that. And I guess going back to everything we said earlier, it's like now we have to start identifying that.
I can't think of one white person in my life that I can turn to and ask, like, have them define to me what whiteness is. What is whiteness? What is white culture to you? You know, it's like when people talk about American culture and American values. They mean white, honey.
Yeah, so
but
what descriptions.
But what is that? What is whiteness? Is it just a skin tone? It's certainly not just the country you originate from or your.
What I've read, are you asking because you don't know?
Tell me.
Well, I've been trying to read what whiteness is, and a lot of just the way we behave and the things we think is whiteness. Like what's the word? Meritocracy. That your merit, like working hard for something, gets you what you want. That's like a white concept. So it's like, it's hard to identify because it's actually just like the shit we do all day, every day. Like the things we believe and the value, it's like a value system, which I think is still then rooted from like Christianity in some way. Probably could be traced back to like Christian values, right? These are white values.
This is a conversation that you and I were having yesterday, and I burst into tears because I was so sad and mad and frustrated and was finally articulating out loud for the first time what I've experienced my entire life, but I've never actually put into words. And that was the frustration that working hard for a Black person isn't always going to result in success and in abundance and in a life of privilege. It's just not. I, as a Black person and as a queer person, can look to my white friends around me or people who have benefited from white privilege and see that we have put the same amount of work and effort into our careers and building a foundation for ourselves and our lives and our betterment. And it's incredibly frustrating to know that so many of my white friends are leaps and bounds ahead of where I am, based on not only the opportunities that they're given, but the pay disparity and the inequity that's, you and I were talking about this. It's a TV show that I was on for 4 seasons that I am tremendously grateful for this show. I was an actor on this show. It changed my life in so many ways. It allows me to live the life that I'm living today. It opened an abundance of doors for me. But I was on a show for 4 years as a lead, playing a character that was created and written for me, but my 3 other lead co-stars were all straight and all white and all making more than double what I was making per episode. And the network and executive were not going to budge on giving me a pay increase season after season, no matter how my character developed, no matter how...
You were popular. You were like the popular character on the show.
And yet, I made literally a fraction of what my straight white counterparts made. And it was something that I brought up to them. It was a point that I had my team try to fight for, saying, I am your only Black queer individual on your set, and I am not being paid my worth or my value. I'm putting in the exact same amount of time and effort and energy into this project as my co-stars are, and with very little to show for it. It's very, very frustrating. The things that we just come to learn to accept, that as a model, my white model friends could travel the world and go to any market and clean up. Yeah. Where I knew that I was never going to be sent to Asia. I was never going to be sent to Australia. I was never going to work in Paris. I was never going to work in certain markets because of the systemic racism, because they don't value Blackness. So therefore they don't photograph Black bodies, because they don't want Black bodies on their advertisements, because it's not a standard of beauty that people strive towards. So I knew that I was only going to be doing literally half of the amount of jobs that all of my straight white, for the most part, straight white and cisgendered counterparts were doing. And it's just so sad to think that it's just something that I accepted for so long. It's something that we're conditioned to accept. The reason why I was so sad about it yesterday is because I realized that it was just something that I had come to accept as fact, that I was going to be working my ass off for the rest of my life, and
you'll always just be like...
I'll always be 5 steps behind you guys. I will always be 5 steps behind. And that is so fucking frustrating. And it makes me really sad, because there's so much truth in it. And there's nothing that I can do to change that, because as long as the powers that be are white people, and specifically straight white cisgendered people, as long as y'all hold the keys to the castle, then you are the ones who are going to make the decision as to whether or not you're going to let me in. And once you decide if you're going to let me in, are you going to allow me a seat at the table? And if you allow me a seat at the table, are you going to treat me with the same equality as everyone else who is at the table? That has never been the case for me, ever. And it's not just me. It's not me playing the victim. It's the story of Black people specifically across the world,
Well, to go back to like naming what whiteness is, because I think this ties in a little bit, because the concept of capitalism in economics is whiteness. Mm-hmm. And that's what I think I was also questioning earlier, like a couple weeks ago or whatever, of being like, whoa, like even the desire to want wealth or to want a nice life is almost like whiteness. Mm-hmm. Like it is like, and so
striving for like that, that suburban life.
Yeah. Like, but striving for wealth, like monetary wealth, is a white concept. And so we've all been conditioned to say like that would be success if I had A, B, C, D or X amount of dollars. And it's like the value system is what's messed up. And so if that's a construct of white supremacy or a byproduct or a manifestation of white supremacy, then even wanting that is a problem, I've started thinking. So I don't have any, I don't know what I don't have a question or an answer. It's just something I've sat with being like,
well, I mean,
so with this whole movement, it's not just about being anti-racist. We also have to be anti-capitalist, and we have to be there's a bunch of things. I think there's like 5 or 6 things that all go into this whole thing. And I think I've even been like, do I want to be anti-capitalist? Like, I'm just actually like, I don't even know if I want to be. Like, I don't know what to think anymore.
People can be changing their minds, and people can be changing what they know to be true. And I think that this going through this process of normalizing changing your thoughts based on garnering new information, like, that's okay. It's okay that you thought something to be true your entire life up until 10 minutes ago, but now you've received this new piece of information, you're like, oh, maybe that's not the case.
And wealth is different than abundance, and that's actually where I started because abundance is different than wealth.
Right. Okay. So this is so this is what I was thinking. So
just money, wanting money is a white thing, isn't it? I think, because it's based on the economy, and this is a construct, and the economy was built on the selling of the enslaved black people. I mean, that's how money was made. This again goes back to slavery. So it's like, to even want that, I feel like, is the problem.
So it's people changing their minds based on new information they're receiving, but it's also about like doing the real work and changing policy and changing the rules and laws that protect black people from discrimination, and when it comes literally to like the pay gap, of making it absolutely legal for black people to be receiving the same amount as white people. But
goes back to, there shouldn't be so much wealth to begin with, because black people will never catch up. So this is the thing. That's why it has to be anti-capitalist, because you can't have the 1% or whatever you want to call them, which are white people holding most of the wealth, that never will allow anyone underneath to catch up, because the distribution is so wrong. So you have to go back to like universal basic income, first of all, to even just take care of people, which is an anti-capitalist like thing. Universal basic income. Sorry, I think I didn't mean to cut you off. No, but it's okay. but it's just that, like, to want wealth is white, and everyone who has the wealth will never allow anyone to catch up. So everyone's asking for equal pay, but it shouldn't actually be equal pay. It should be that the people that are making so much money should be getting less money, way less money.
But this is the thing. This is where people really get their backs up, and where people get so scared, because we were talking about this earlier about like
away your
not only taking away privilege, but like the scarcity mentality and the fear mentality. So you can say at the end of the day that you want to be equal to me, that you want me to get paid the same amount as you, but if that means for a moment that your well-being is threatened, if you think that things are going to be taken away from you because I'm getting more, I'm getting what I actually deserve, even if it's the same as you, the reality that at the end of the day, you're not going to cast a vote for somebody who's going to be looking for equity. You're not going to cast your vote for Bernie Sanders. You're going to be casting your vote for somebody who's going to be looking out for your white ass at the end of the day. It is really deeply ingrained in politics, and something that I really couldn't understand about Joe Biden, and why Joe Biden has such a huge older black following. And I've realized it's because older black folk in this country do not trust white people. They do not trust that white people are going to actually vote in the interests of anybody but themselves, because they never have. They may have in small minorities, but for the majority, they haven't. They really haven't. So they know that it's better to take the safe bet and vote for somebody like Joe Biden, who can go across the aisle and can appeal to Republicans and Democrats, as opposed to Bernie Sanders, where as much as he may his policies may align with ours and our beliefs, and I'm a Bernie fan, the chances of them actually going into that voting booth and casting a vote for Bernie are slim, if not completely unlikely. So the reality is that white people can be saying that they want equality, but if they're completely engulfed by this fear of scarcity or having what they have taken away from them, they're not going to do the right thing at the end of the day. And what people need to realize is that equality from this point forward doesn't mean that you're going to have things taken away from you. It's that I'm going to be given some more opportunities. Yeah. And that is scary. And it does suck for you that as a white man, you're not going to get every single opportunity that you go out for in this world, and that you are no longer going to be the king of the castle, and that you are going to have to be playing on a more even playing field. But like, that's what equality is. Yeah. And if you aren't okay with that, then you're an asshole. Like, you know, I mean, truly, I can think of, in Canada, we may not have had the same history of the oppression of Black people, but there is a deeply dark and fucked up history of the oppression of Indigenous people. And we think of, even to this day, Indigenous people's sacred lands being pillaged, being raped by white men wanting to go in and frack and destroy their lands for oil and gas. Mm-hmm. It blows my mind that so many white people are okay with it and don't see it for the evil that it really is, until like they're presented with the question, would you be okay if people of color were going in and tearing down the Sistine Chapel or the Vatican or the Louvre or, you know, any, you know, white monument in America in order to create pathways for oil and gas? If you're not okay with that, but you're okay with people going in and destroying the lands of Indigenous people, you're a white supremacist. Like, that is putting whiteness as like the ideal, and this is something that is so pristine it cannot be touched. But why can the culture and history and lives of anyone who is not white be disrupted for your benefit and your gain?
Yeah,
and
your jobs, your money, your houses.
Why is that okay? Yeah. It's just simply not.
It's not okay.
Mm-hmm.
The scarcity mentality, though, is also, I think, a projection or a reflection of the fact that white people stole the land. Mm-hmm. And they're afraid of getting their shit stolen again. Like, they're afraid of their own behavior being done to them, and that's why white people are so fragile and scared, I think, too.
Do you think it's even something that people really acknowledge, that the revisionist history that people have been taught, that Christopher Columbus came and discovered America? You can't discover a land that people have been living on for centuries, you know? Like, you didn't discover shit.
That's like a white...
Right. So
century.
I don't think that people can even connect when we're celebrating holidays like Columbus Day. You can't connect the fact that this Italian man was a thief. He came in and he was, you know, historically, if you actually look at the facts of who Christopher Columbus was, he wasn't somebody to be celebrated. So can people even connect that fact that white people did not come to power in the way that they are now globally in a mindful way? They did not come about it in an honest way. No. They came about it by lying, by stealing, by breaking treaties, by murdering people, by revising the story of the Bible and making it all white-centered, by going around the world and shoving that down people's throats and letting that be the only story that is true. I mean, there is a path to the reason why the world is the way that it is today, but people first have to recognize that.
But can we even change? As I think where I go to this deep, dark place where it's like, is this just how humans are? And like, there may be some virtuous ones, and there may be some ones who are anti-establishment, who say the right things or the new things or the new concepts. But I think sometimes I get to this point, and this is where I've been for the last couple of weeks, of like, can we actually change? Or is this like somehow just like our inherent nature? If this is how history started, with these types of values, greed, rape, pillaging, lying, is that just what humans are like? I mean, it's happened even prior to that.
I think that so much of the mentality of the world around us is that it's the false belief that everybody has to be on the same page before anything can change. And history has proven time and time again that is simply not true. Yeah. If everyone were on the same page before slavery was abolished, then slavery never would have been abolished. If everybody was on the same page for women to have the right to vote, that would have never happened. Right. If everyone was on the same page for gay people to get married, for trans people to be able to use the bathrooms of their assigned gender, it's a thing that sometimes change just has to come, and people will accept it. People will adapt to it.
Maybe what I just said is also white supremacy. I think what I just said as an answer. See, this is what I'm saying. Like, I'm trying to find it, and it's very hard to find where the conditioning is. And what we have to remember is that it's not going to go away. I don't, you know, like there'll always be more to a reveal and unveil,
Yeah.
Like you're not going to get it right.
Yeah.
And you're not done. You're never done.
Yeah. We see that certain brands are being called out for their facade of allyship. They can put the Black Lives Matter iconography onto their social media pages. They can be giving companies like Nike, giving their employees a paid vacation day for Juneteenth. But then you look at the board of these companies like Nike, and all of the executives are white and cisgendered. They can make the moves to start promoting Black people from within their company. They can hire Black executives. They can make sure that the resumes of Black applicants are put to the top of the pile as opposed to the bottom of the pile, and start from that place. But this is something that Dr. Robin DiAngelo talks about in her book, White Fragility, that we can't just be throwing Black people into shark-infested waters, because those waters are still shark-infested. We have to change the mentality of the organizations from within. And it starts with education and re-education. So, you know, would I necessarily want to be going into a corporation right now and be given a position as an executive?
Right.
No, because while I'm in that position of power and making decisions to better my community around me, I'm going to be constantly fought at every turn by the system of white supremacy.
I started White Fragility. I'm waiting for the book to arrive because I can't listen to it. I need to read it and highlight it. I was listening to it and I wasn't absorbing it.
That book is so powerful, and once again, I think it's mandatory reading. It's somebody who I referenced earlier. It's a book written by a woman named Dr. Robin DiAngelo, a white woman who focuses on whiteness studies. And I think that's the thing that's so powerful about the book, is that she lays it out in a very blatant, unapologetic way, the system of the structures of whiteness and how they've been upheld and how they're created, and how we as individuals in the world, and specifically like white liberals, perpetuate it. But it's told by a white woman, and a white woman who had to learn along the way and admits the mistakes that she made as well in her learning process. And the thing, going back to the beginning of this conversation, I can have this conversation with you or with so many of my white friends and speak of my experience, and sometimes it's just not heard. Sometimes white people need to hear it from white people, which is why I think this book is so powerful. There's also an essay written, I think it was back in like 1986, called Unpacking the Invisible Knapsack, and that's a mandatory reading for people.
Read that. I will say some of the things are very hard to understand, and I'm still reading it. Some of like the things she lists is like, do you experience this? Some of it's hard to. There's a bit. I've never felt so stupid, and it's good because there's so much stuff that I'm. There's words and things and the way words. This sounds like I sound stupid. It's like the way words are put together that I'm like, huh? Like I don't understand this as a concept. Like. This isn't stuff I've ever been exposed to.
It's a language that you're learning.
It's a language. I'm learning a language.
And it's a learning curve, and it's going to take time, people.
You are learning a new language. That's a really good way to put it. And it's very hard. Like my brain goes glitchy and weird.
But you will get it.
I hope so.
You understand it more than you did a month ago, and you're going to understand it more than you do today.
I hope so, and I do want to understand it, and that's why I've basically decided to take a break away from what I've normally been doing. I'm doing very little of it anyway, because this takes a lot of time. And I want to do it because it's actually enjoyable to like have your brain work a different way. Also, I was going to say with White Fragility, I think is good to read in mandatory, and I want to read it because I need to understand the system of white supremacy and what whiteness looks like and be able to point it out and identify it. But I think that you have to do White Fragility simultaneously to listening to Black people. Like, you can't just read White Fragility and be like, great, understood. I think it's a combination because you also have to start, and once you understand what White Fragility is and what that looks like, you have to listen to Black people. And you have to
that does not mean going to this present company excluded. That does not mean going to your Black friends and getting them to educate you, because it is not our job. It is not our job to continue to do free labor for white people's benefits.
No,
like, this is a pattern we need to break.
Sonia Renee, she's amazing. She's putting up videos. She is teaching white people.
Well, I mean, white people need to be taught. And
the airplane's off. Okay, anyway, I'll link it below. But this woman, she's amazing, and she just talks on her stories. And also Amanda Seales from Insecure, I like watching her videos. I mean, you can learn from Black people without laboring them, because they are putting information out on social media. If you're already on social media anyway, what I have found to be helpful, and I know there was like a bit of this like, oh, everyone's just now following all these Black people, and are they really paying attention? It's like, I don't know, I'm paying attention. Like, I've enjoyed, this sounds so stupid, but I didn't have this stuff in my feed before. I only followed bullshit vegan stuff. I didn't follow like activists and like, so I have all these like amazing Black people in my feed who are saying great things, and I'm listening, and like that's just something you can do. You don't need to tell anyone you're doing it. You don't need to ask them what to do or DM them. Just follow them and listen to their content. Like, we live in this echo chamber, right? Like, I lived in a bubble or an echo chamber where all I talked about was like veganism and this and blah blah blah, and it's like I'm so sick of my.
It's still relevant.
It's still relevant, but I will admit I'm a little sick of myself and my bubble, and I'm just like kind of being like, this is like, I'm enjoying learning this shit and listening to it. It's not shit, but I'm like just saying.
But you along with so many of my friends and so many of my white friends are saying that at this point in time they feel irrelevant. They feel like their voice is unimportant. They feel like they have nothing to offer, and the reality is that it just goes back to what we've been talking about this whole conversation, that is not true. White people's voices are more important now than ever, because you have to be the ones who educate yourself and then can educate your fellow white people. We can't be the ones to constantly do it. So your voice is important, but your voice has to be that of an educated person.
And there's so many nuances to this, because actually this was something I wanted to touch on, because my life and my job is social media. The reason I jumped on this, and it made sense, I'm sure there was some social pressure, obviously, and performativism or whatever, because how could there not be? But I also had to say, like, look, Lauren, this is what you have. You have hundreds of thousands of people listening to you, so you fucking have to say something, and you can't stop. And, like, that's just, like, the thing I had to realize, because it's like, it's what I have, it's the one resource I have, so I have to now use it differently. And I don't know what that means 100% all of the time going forward, but it's just like, for now I've just, and I can't worry about what people think. I have to just be like, this is what I have, and it is important. It's not, and this idea of feeling irrelevant, I mean, I think I've said to you, because I just feel like the stuff I was doing before is kind of like, who gives a fuck, and like, let's just take a pause on it. And it's been impactful for me, and I know there are some people like not really, who are being 100% performative and who aren't taking it serious. It's very obvious. I'm approaching even what I'm doing with a very critical eye, a much more critical eye than I did before with just my regular stuff. And I think that that's good, right? It's like to have more information and to have more accountability and more.
It's great. And through you using your platform and you know, providing your followers with information, you are creating a pathway for them to be able to educate themselves and to learn new things. And the thing is that as a Black person, I need y'all to learn new things, because I can't explain everything. I'm asked time and time again to explain certain things about whiteness and racism, and I can't explain it because I don't understand it myself, because I don't do it. I mean, I don't understand the way that it works. I'm asked about, you know, I was in an emotionally abusive relationship, and I've dealt with fetishization from white men, and trying to explain it, I can't.
No, you can only explain how it affects you.
Correct.
And the damage it does, but you're not like, I don't know why or
because
how.
and even being in those positions, or, you know, ending relationships with people and asking them to try to explain it to me, and they can't explain it to me. So it's like, you have to do the work and start investigating your thoughts and your own behavior and understanding why you behave this way that is so damaging to other people, and recognizing the recklessness of it, that if you don't even know why you're behaving this way, but you know it's affecting other people, how does that line up?
There's a lot to learn.
There's a lot of work that needs to be done. We have come so far, but we have so much further to go, and it just cannot stop. It cannot stop. You okay? How you feeling?
No, I feel good. It can't stop. I mean, I think I get that, and I don't know what to say. I don't know what to say.
I don't know what to say either.
It's uncomfortable, and it sucks. But I keep just thinking, but it doesn't suck as much as having to live with the fact that you're discriminated against because you're Black. Like, I mean, I just have to keep reminding myself that like,
exhausting.
But because I've never thought about that.
It's so exhausting.
I know, and so to think now, you have to think like that.
I mean, I think about it. I think about it on when I'm on set of a TV show, that not only, you know, being in a position of privilege and power because I may be the lead on a show or a movie or whatever, and having to set the tone and standard and be kind to everyone and know every crew member's name and expending my energy in that way, that's one thing. But on top of that, being a black man, on top of that, being a queer man, having to disarm everyone around me, it's something that has just become the norm in my life. Every room I walk into, I make sure that I am disarming everyone around me, that I let everyone know that I am like smiley and good energy and safe. You don't have anything to fear around me. I'm a 6'4" black man, but don't worry, I'm not gonna hurt you. It's fucking exhausting. You know, it takes so much of my energy doing that when it comes to actually doing my job, I have so little to give. It's exhausting. Yeah. You know? But so much of it is me being a highly sensitive person, needing to make sure that everyone else around me feels comfortable so that I can feel okay. Because if I'm in it's really challenging as a highly sensitive person to be in a room with people who you know.
Yeah, that's a very complicated feedback loop.
Yeah.
You're doing it for them, for you.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because I want to be like, okay, so what if you just didn't do it? Well, but then you'd be in a state of feeling high alert or
uncomfortable, unsafe. So that's where it goes back to the unlearning that needs to be done, and the re-education is the work of white people for white people. There's so much more to cover, and I'm here to cover it with you. I'm here to continue these conversations with you. Yeah,
we won't do them all publicly. This was just a good little thing. Thanks for chatting.
Yeah, thank you Thanks for doing the work.
Well, thanks for teaching me and being patient with me, even though.
Absolutely.
And I'm sorry for my past bullshit.
I love you.
Love you.
Thank you.
Also,
I love you.
Wait, I have to mention that we talked. The monetization on this video is on, but I'm going to take all the money that's generated from the ad revenue and donate it to the
LA LGBT Center.
Yes.
Which is it has many, many, many different programs, many different health and mental health programs, but it's also here in Los Angeles a housing facility for unhoused youth on one side of their building, which is majority black and brown bodies of young people and black and brown transgender people, but everyone is queer. And the other side of the housing facility is for queer and LGBTQ senior citizens. It's something that's really, really beautiful. There's no other organization like it in the world, specifically one that houses senior citizens and youth side by side that are all part of the LGBTQ community, because as much as it's up to white people to educate yourselves and re-educate yourselves and do the work, that's the only way that change can be made, and change can be made sustainably. It's also up to us as queer people to know our history and to hear the stories of our elders and the people who have come before us, who faced many trials and tribulations and struggles along their way, but to hear the stories of their triumphs and of their activism and of the moments of revolution. And, as humans, our path is not linear. We're all cyclical. And history is very oftentimes doomed to repeat itself. But if we know the details and the nitty-gritty nature of our history, the ride can be a little less bumpy each and every time we face the same path.
Amazing.
Yeah.
So that's where that will go. Thank you.
Yeah,
it was his recommendation. And, okay, well, that's all.
That's
all for now. I love you too.
Yeah, thanks, Toto.
Thanks for listening.
Bye, guys.
Bye.